So now we're going to draw this base plate. What we want to start out with, because I was looking over this project, I want to start out with this drawing up here. I'm doing so because I have all the information needed to create that drawing. Unlike the other drawings, like this washer, you don't see where the hole locations are for these little circles. So we don't have the diameter of what they're following and so forth. This one has no dimensions whatsoever, so it'll be almost really hard to draw this out without the information shown here. So we start with the most detailed object, and it's pretty simple too, which helps reflect how to draw this one. So once we have this, we draw it down, and we work from there. We can also draw a cross, which is going to be this. Well, that's going to be a washer. So that's a separate piece. Yeah, it's a separate piece that goes on top, that gets bolted on, and so forth. So this is the diagram of it completely assembled. Here are all the parts to it, and here's a top view of it completely assembled. Usually, I've seen a lot of people use all the assembled parts on the right side and all the detailed parts on the left side. So I'm not quite sure why this drawing was shown the other way, but it's still effective and it works. Plus, it's labeled, so there should be no confusion on this. Alright, so basically what we want to start out with is a template. So open up your templates, go to your model space, and before you even start, go to File, Save As, and save the project to the appropriate location. And if you have older versions, make sure you change that to 2010. This project is called Baseplate. So that's what I'm going to call it. I'm going to save it. And I'm going to start up with that rectangle, or square, because you can tell it's a square because it says SQ 6.25, which is a square shorthand. So we go to a rectangle command. Anywhere on the screen is fine. We click one point for the corner, and we type in D for dimension, and then we type in 6.25 for the width and 6.25 for the height. And don't forget to click on the screen, otherwise it will disappear. So by clicking on the screen, you tell it which quadrant, if there's like 4 quadrants, from the point you started out, to place that square. Alright, so we have that. I'm drawing it in object layer, if you guys are interested. And we're going to start out with drawing these circles. Now to do that, I need the center point of that square. There's a simple way of doing that. You can just draw a line across, and that gives you the center. The midpoint of this line is the center of the square. Make sure you have OSNAP on and you have drafting annotations set up. We're not doing 3D just yet. Possibly we'll get into 3D later with this project. We go with circles. Make sure your midpoint is on, activated. If you don't have that activated, you go to OSNAP, make sure that's activated, and right click on it, make sure midpoint is highlighted. So again, midpoint should snap on, and we're going to type in a few dimensions. The first circle is diameter, D, enter, 1. Second circle is diameter 2. Third circle is diameter 3.5. There's also an additional circle, which is going to be 1.25. So circle D, enter, 1.25. Now I constantly go back to the same command by just clicking space. By clicking space or enter, you go back to your original, your previous command. So if I had circle command before, I hit space, it goes into my circle command. If I was playing with lines and I went to space, it will go back to my line command, and so forth. If you were in undo, it will undo. So keep that in mind. So if I delete that and I go space, it goes to erase command, and so forth. Alright, so we have that. This cross line is no longer needed, so I'm going to remove that by deleting it or erasing it. Pencil eraser here. And we're going to create those circles in the quadrants of this big circle. To make sure you snap onto the quadrants, what you want to go to is on the right click on OSNAP, make sure you have quadrants activated. So it's going to look like a circle with 4 dots in each quadrant. Okay, once you have that activated, you go to your circle command again, and if you hover over a quadrant of, or like the end, I mean there's not really an end to a circle, but the highest point in of the circle, that will be the quadrant. And from there you're going to type in D for diameter of 0.5. But always make sure that when you're working with drawings, some people make a mistake and they put a radius and a diameter, so that may screw up your drawing. We can do all corners like that, or there's a simple way of doing this. Since all circles are the same size, we can either use polar array, or even a faster command that I use is I just copy it. I use copy command, I select the circle, click enter. It's going to ask me to specify a base point of copy. So I'm going to copy it from that quadrant into this quadrant, into this quadrant, into that quadrant. And I click enter or space to accept it. And that creates that whole object. Now again, we have to change these layers so we don't get too confused. This layer is a center line, so I'm going to change it to center, which will give it a dashed view. You don't have to put the dimensions now. I'm just going to put them up for easy reference. Oops.
Did you put that in the center of the square?
So I'm going to add dimensions. I'm going to do diameter since the drawings are showing diameter for everything. The only problem here is my marker, which is right in the middle, is a little big, creating really big marker. So I'm going to have to format something here. Here's no circle. This is something you don't have to do, but I have to modify it so the marker is not that big. There we go. It's a lot cleaner now. Again, I can also change the layers that I put the dimensions in into a dimension layer, giving it a little less thickness and keeping the drawing a bit cleaner. Okay, so our second part will be the front view, front section view. That's why you have the dashed lines. Dashed lines, or a hatching, specify that this is a cut through. So we use this top drawing as our reference, and we draw a line that snaps onto the endpoint of this rectangle or square. We have ortho on, that way it's completely square, and we're going to go about 6 inches away. Doesn't matter what distance you place as long as it's away from your original drawing. And I'm going to start by having both endpoints of the base of the second drawing ready. So I drew a line from here to here. I did that 6 because I knew this is 4.25, and this I just assumed is about 2 inches or less. That's where I got this location. Now I can close that up.
Wait, you did 2 inches?
Okay, from there I can either remove these lines or just, actually I'm going to remove these lines. I have the base, I can go work it upwards since I know the thickness is 1.5. And going across, I don't have the specifications on it, but if I wish, I can take the exterior circle here, draw a reference line, select the endpoint here, and hit the perpendicular command where it snaps into this line. I also go up the remainder to get to 4.25. I will need to go 2.75. Now, if my math's right, that should come out to be 4 1/4. Yep. So that's what we're looking for, 4 1/4. Now I'm only doing one side because I'm going to mirror it later. So instead of doing 2 inches up here, I'm going to do 1 inch. Now once you have something like this complete, what you can do is start using the reference circles to create our slots and so forth. So what we're going to do is take a line command, hover over our circle here. If we move our mouse down, you'll see a dashed green line, and that's only if you move your mouse pretty much dead center going straight down. It helps you reference or snap to the exact same location on the base. Be careful not to snap to the midpoint. You want to snap to the actual quadrant. So again, quadrant of the circle, I move my mouse down from there. It creates this green line, dashed line, which I can follow, and finally snap into my line down here. From there, I go down as an ortho, and I snap to the bottom line. Do the same thing with the other side. I don't click, I just hover over the quadrant, move down, see that dashed line? It's a perfectly 180 degree vertical line, and I draw that line here by clicking on the intersect point. I believe, yes, it's an X intersection point and an intersection point. The tricky part about the center part is that there's two sizes. So there's the first one and there's the second one. The first one is by specification, it's 1.25 by ½ inch, and the rest is the 1 inch through. So we can still use the top circles as our reference. We go to our line command. We hover over the second circle, so not the first one, the second one. And I'm going to move my mouse down. Sometimes this doesn't work. Oh, there it is. There you go. So you got to play around a little bit. Move your mouse down until you snap to your drawing, your front view drawing. You click on it, and then you draw a line that is 0.5 deep. Okay, so once you have that, we can do the next one, which is the smaller circle. Again, we hover over the quadrant of the smaller circle this time, and we move our mouse down. You can. The only problem is if you're zoomed in, zooming out, you sometimes lose that dashed line, so you may have to start over. And I'm going to go down till I snap. Oh, here's another issue. By snapping it, my midpoint of this line interferes. Alright, so I can't really do it that way, so I'm going to do it the other way, which is I know the diameter of that circle inside is right here, 1 inch. So I need to move ½ inch. So actually the midpoint is the place where I want to create that line. But if you didn't know that, you just draw a line from the center, 0.5, and you would go all the way down. Then you take this line here, and we gotta make sure that it's the same length from here to here, so it actually matches up. So we use the line command, we stamp onto here, and the cool part about the 2010 and up is you can hover over the line that you wanted to extend the length, the same length as the other line. So you'll hover over to the endpoint and move your mouse down, you'll see that dashed green line that we had before. Here, I'll zoom in for a better view. And that will allow you to snap in exactly the same dimension. All you have to do is click, and that's it. I'm going to actually stretch this line back because based on the drawing, that should not be completely up. So I'm going to select that line. I'm going to select that blue point, which is the end point. And I'm just going to click on it and move my mouse down until I can snap to the horizontal line. That creates pretty much my whole object, which I need to mirror. So I select the entire object like so. I use the mirror command, and I mirror it over based on either this. You can even use your top view rectangle and just select the midpoint or quadrants. You're just drawing a line that you're mirroring over. And for the erase source object, you want to say no, so keep the default, just click enter. And you should end up with something like this. Once you have that, you use the hatch command. I'll do that, and then I'll walk around and make sure everybody's cut up. So hatch command is in in draw, there's a hatch. And use the hatch command. We're going to use the ANSI 131, which is like a default, and see if that works. That looks pretty nice. And you just select all the areas that you want to fill up. Once you're done with that, you just close hatch creation, or you click X, escape. Alright, next part we're going to draw is this part here. We're going to use this as a reference since it is basically the same little circles. Center circle may be different. It's a 2-inch diameter, and the exterior one may be different too. But based on here, what I'm reading here, it's the same. And it's 4.5 for the outside diameter, because that is the front view, or the section view of the front. So we go back to our drawing. We make a copy of this. So I select everything. Even though I have the dimensions, it's okay. Let's move it over and delete those dimensions and the rectangle. Also the center circles, I wasn't quite sure what they were in diameter, so I'm going to delete them and just create a new circle. And the new circle will have a diameter of enter 2.
Where should you move it over?
Doesn't matter. So the center had a 2 circle diameter. I can keep the center line here because it does not affect anything, and it's nice to have, I guess. And I'm going to create one more circle from the center point. That is diameter of 3.5. Oh, I'm sorry, not 3.5, 4.5, based on the front view. So I got the 4.5 from here, 4.5 for front view. Now, since we have that, we're going to have to do the front section view just like we did over here. But just to make sure, if you didn't have that tracking option beforehand, you have to make sure you have O-Track on. O-Track on is what lets you have those green lines. So if I hover over this, I move my mouse, those green dashed lines are the O-Track. So that's how it's called. So I'm going to take the line command, I'm going to hover over the quadrant of the big circle, and I'm going to move my mouse down somewhere around here, and I click, and I go up for the thickness with 1.5. I already know the overall dimension, which is 4.5. I just keep on creating that rectangle. Next step is I'm going to have to create these slots for these circles. So I'm going to use the line command, hover over the circles, move my mouse down, and I snap and go down. Do the same thing for the next one, and doing the same for the middle one, which is the big one. But I'm only going to do the first 3 lines because that is all I need to mirror to create the exact whole drawing. So I'm going to take these 3 lines and I'm going to mirror it based on the midpoint of my rectangle. And that creates exactly what I'm looking for. The next step to this would be create the hatch, which is under draw, go to hatch. I'm going to use the ANSI 131, and I'm going to select the spaces that need to be hatched. In addition to that, I will also need to create a center line for these slots. So to do that, I once again go and hover over my circles with the line command. I move down, and I probably just draw a line from a little over the horizontal line and a little over the horizontal line at the bottom. That would create my center line. So I take that line, I convert the layer from object to center, give me that exact center line that we're looking for. Now I need to create this for all 3 circles. So this little circle, this big circle, and this little circle. There's a quick cheat to this. What you want to do is select that center line, use the copy command, use the center of the first circle as your reference, which is the center of that line that you have here, and reference it over to the center of the big circle and to the little circle on the right side. That will give you exactly the center marks for all 3 holes. Now I'm going to also add those dimensions for those of you that need it. Like so, and change layer again. Dimensions should be in the dimension layer, and that's what we need. Alright, so our next step is we're going to create this bolt here. And then create the bottom view of it, which is that right here, which is actually not correct. There are some circles missing in this. So what I recommend when we do the bolt is actually to do one side and mirror it over, or you can do both sides. It's really up to you. All the information is there. You got the chamfers, and I'll show you how to make that different hatch. So we start with, we actually can just start with the rectangle, or we can do half of it. What do you guys prefer?
It's so small that it's fine. I want all of it.
Okay. Alright, so we'll just do the rectangle, and then we'll work from there. And since it looks like it's nicely centered to this, we'll use that the same way. That way it looks nice. So just going to draw a line from this point here, about 2 inches as a reference. And we're going to draw a square for the knurl. So it's actually going to be a rectangle that is, just click a point anywhere in the screen. It's going to be 2, the D for dimension, 2 by, what is it, 0.75. Once you have that placed, what you want to do is move it so it aligns with your top drawing. So we go to Move command, we select the rectangle, click space or enter, select the midpoint, which should be a triangle, and then we select the endpoint of this line that we created as a reference. Once we do that, we don't need that reference line anymore, and we just have our top part of our bolt. In addition to that, we might as well do the chamfer for this. Again, in 2014, there is issues with chamfering polygons, so it may not work, but I think it should work. So we go from fillet, down arrow to chamfer. Once you have chamfer selected, it's going to ask you some options here: undo, polyline, distance, angle. We're going to use the distance command, and being at 45 degrees, both distances will be the same. So on the drawing, it specifies 0.12. That's our first distance, and 0.12 again for our second distance. Keep in mind, you have to enter twice. If it's not working, it's probably because you're missing that. Click enter, and then you can select the lines you would like to chamfer, like so. Then click space to come back to the same command. All the default dimensions are the same, so you just have to click it. So we create that top chamfer. Now we create our next rectangle. Again, I usually just create a rectangle anywhere in space. Type in D for dimension. It's going to be 1.25 for width by the height of, you got to do a little bit of math, it's 0.5. And I click on the screen. Remember, we have to click on it so it knows which quadrant to place it in. So we click, and then we use the move command once more. Select move command, select the object you like to move, click enter or space, make sure you select the midpoint. Again, if you don't see those midpoints and it's not specifying midpoint, make sure your O snap is activated, and if you right click on O snap, midpoint should be activated or highlighted. Select the midpoint, you move it over, snap on to the other midpoint of the rectangle up here. So now we have 2 pieces, and we finally have to get to our third piece, which I'm trying to figure out what the size is because it's not really specifying. So our rectangle that's at center here is actually 1 inch wide by 3.5 inches high. So we go to rectangle, click anywhere on the screen, D for dimension, 1, enter, 3.5, enter. We do the move command once more, midpoint to midpoint. And we have that part. In addition to that, we have to create the same chamfers because it says on a drawing that both ends. So this chamfer and this chamfer are the same. So all we have to do is go to chamfer. Our setup is the same, so we don't have to do anything except chamfer the bottom. In addition, we do have to draw a line across to show that it is chamfered all the way around. Next step is we'll add the hatch. To do that, you go to Draw tab here, go to Hatch, and we're going to select a different hatch. There's an arrow over here. There you can select, and it's going to give you options to select different hatch types. There's concrete, there's architectural, brick, and so forth. But we're looking for ANSI S137. So it's like a square box kind of design. Select that. We select the area we would like to hatch. Now if you're okay with the sizing or you would like to change it, your sizing options are here and the angle options are here, which rotates your drawing. So once you have the hatch up, you can actually play around with the arrow here and you'll see them zooming in and zooming out. That's the newer version. The old version did not allow you to do that. So keep in mind, you had to go through a lot of command bars to get this cool setup. So you select the scale you like, and you just click close hatch creation, or you click enter. So we have that completed. You can also add the dimensions, which are pretty simple.
What's the chamfer distance?
0.12. Oops. Yeah. Now, if you don't like the dimensions inside, you can also select the dimension, select the blue point at the center, and just drag it out, or even move it across to match our drawing. The only problem is there's no space in between, which is not good. We want a space so it doesn't look like it's all cluttered up, and you'll be looking at that line trying to figure out if it's part of the dimension or if it's part of the drawing. So what you want to do when you do these things is move those snap points to the edge or to the end point. That way you'll see a gap which you can modify in your format dimension style. So if you go format, and if you don't see these tabs here, all you do is down arrow here and go to show menu bar. You click on that and you'll see these options here. Go to format, dimension style, and of course we'll go over that later in the class. So we have that, and what we want to do next, we're going to change the layers for this so it makes it a lot nicer and cleaner. And you can change, move any dimensions that you believe that should be moved to give it space. So when they're printed out, black and white, people can tell the difference between what is the dimension and what is the physical model. Once we have this part, we need to do a bottom view of it. You can also do a top view if you like, but we're only going to do a bottom view. So to do a bottom view that's perfectly aligned with the bolt, we want to draw a line from the midpoint as a reference and just draw it down about some kind of space here. That way, when we create that circle, which we see in our PDF, it's actually aligned with this bolt. What I just realized looking at the bolt now is that we do need a center line to it. So what you can do with the center line is you can select a line from midpoint to midpoint, and you're just going to stretch it out by escaping, selecting the line again, hitting that blue point, just stretching out a little bit from both sides, and then changing the layer from object to center, creating that center line. Okay, so that concludes that part. We're going to start from the bottom view, which is going to be just all circles. We have pretty much all the dimensions. So we go with circle command. The first one, we have 1 inch. So we type in D for diameter, 1 inch. The second one is D for enter, 1.25. And the top one is D enter 2. That creates all the circles. And you can delete that reference line. The only thing we're not showing now is, which is optional, is the chamfer circle. So technically there's 2 circles that should be added, one over here and one over here. I'm going to add those into the bottom, but I'm going to change the layer so it's not as thick of a layer. And before I do that, I just want to measure them out so I don't have to do the math to figure it out. So 1.76 here and 0.76 here. So when I do draw these circles, I'm going to change my layer I'm working in. I'm going to do like a hidden. I'm going to circle, D enter 0.76, and the other one is D enter 1.76. So if you want to see the chamfers, you can turn the layer on or off, or change the layer itself to something different. Go back to my regular object layer, and if you like, it looks like there's no dimensions on it, so we're not going to dimension it out. We'll do it the next one over here. It's a very simple washer on the left side, and then we'll get into this bolt. And then finally, we'll put them all together to create this lovely assembly here. So following the drawing, they wanted the washer on this side, which we can do. You can just do a circle, the inside diameter 0.63, and the outside diameter from the center is 1.25. Use that as a reference to create the rectangle, or you can just do a rectangle. Click on any point on the screen, type in D for dimension, 0.12 by 1.25. We place it on the screen, and we of course use the move command like we did before. Select the object, move it from midpoint to the quadrant this time of the circle, and then we can just move it over using ortho, move it across, and you can add those dimensions to this. But technically this washer does have a problem because it does not show you the dashed lines of the center of the circle. So technically there should be two lines in here showing a cutout, but that should be hidden. But we'll leave it because we can assume that that is what we have. Or you can go ahead and add those, which are pretty simple to add. Oops. Like so. Just change the layer, make sure that's hidden. And there we go. Completed that little washer. That concludes part 1. Going to do the rest in part 2.